Yes, thank you, Jess. Overview of our agenda today. We're going to discuss a little bit about EFC and DOH and what we do. We'll talk about the Drinking Water State Revolving Funds, as well as some EFC and DOH grant programs, as well as eligibility. Then we'll touch on our technical assistance offered through the community assistance teams. Homes and Community Renewal will present on their community development block grant program. And then we'll have the Department of State present on a couple of their programs. So an overview about EFC and DOH funding. We have a couple of different lines. So first we have our Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and this is based for sewer and wastewater treatment projects. What we'll be mainly focusing on today is the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, which provides low-cost capital for drinking water projects. And then we'll also touch on our state water grants programs. And just to mention here, drinking water state water grants are and SRF funds are co-administered by EFC and the New York State Department of Health. So the overview on our impact, we have a nation-leading investment. So since 1990, we provided $39.2 billion to wastewater projects. Since 1996 and the inception of the DWSRF, we provided $10.6 billion in assistance to drinking water projects. And since 2015, we provided almost $3 billion in water grants to over 1,000 projects. So this is a nice graphic showing how each of the state revolving funds functions. So we start with seed money, which is an expenditure from the EPA and a match amount from the state of New York. Then that goes in with repayments from other loans that we've given out, as well as funds from proactive fund management. So all of those go into the principal amount that can then be loaned out. And that allows us to provide low-cost funding to wastewater and drinking water infrastructure projects, as well as keep our interest rates low through bond repayments. An overview of the types of financing we offer through the DWSRF. This includes short-term and long-term financing, market rate subsidized or interest-free, as well as financial assistance. So looking at short-term versus long-term, we have short-term financing up to 5 years available, as well as long-term financing up to 30 years. And then looking at the different types of interest rates we're able to offer, we have market rate, which is based on EFC's bond rating for projects with a score below the subsidy line. We have subsidized, which is 33.33% of the interest rate reduction for drinking water projects that score above the subsidy line. And then for hardship projects, interest-free financing can also be offered. At the beginning of April, we had a market rate of 4.2%. And for the 2026 draft DWSRF IUP, the subsidy line is at 60 points. And then this gives us an overview of the intended use plans and how they function. So we first have the multi-year list. So this is for applicants that have expressed an interest in receiving SRF financial assistance at some point. And then we also have our annual list that identifies projects that may receive financial assistance in the current federal fiscal year. These are prepared annually by law, and they describe how the funds will be used. And that is through a process called Project Rank and Score, where they're evaluated on public health impacts and water quality impacts. And then eligible costs are determined based on documented estimates from engineering reports, plans and specifications, and contract awards. This is a nice timeline on how to access financing. So first is an optional step. This will be listing your project on the multi-year list and can be done with just a simple form that's sent to the Department of Health. Once you have a little bit more information on your project, an actual engineering report, you can apply to be on the annual list, where you'll be identified what funding you're eligible for within the federal fiscal year. You'll then prepare your required documents, which include bond resolutions, concrete budget information, environmental review documentation, and a few other things. And at that point, you can apply for financing using our portal system, excuse me. And then I'm going to turn it over to Ashley with DOH to discuss the listing process a little bit more in depth.
Thank you, Nick. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward process to get on our intended use plan. We have a one-page document, fillable PDF on our website that you fill out with basic project information, timeline, and budget. So you just send that to design@health.ny.gov. I monitor that email, so I'll see those coming in. And for the engineering report, we have guidance on our website as well. The most important part of those is that there's an alternative analysis and then a recommendation for which proposal is the community would like to move forward with, and the reasoning for that. And it needs to be stamped or prepared, stamped, and dated by a New York State licensed professional engineer. We have that link on the slide there. That's where you can find both of those documents, the guidance for engineering report and the listing form. So examples of drinking water state revolving fund projects would be updating or replacing treatment facilities, updating or replacing or installing new distribution lines. Our funding can help develop new sources or replace contaminated sources, and we can also deal with storage tanks. Those are just a few examples. The next page, yes, thank you. The next slide provides some examples of projects as well. We didn't used to be able to fund dam work, but a few summers ago, EPA changed the criteria a little bit, so we are able to fund some projects. The picture to the right is from Kingston and their Cooper Lake Dam restoration project. As long as there's some criteria listed in our intended use plan. If you have a project that you think might be eligible, you can feel free to reach out to us and we can dive into that further. But we can also help with consolidation of water supplies, particularly if private wells are contaminated and the water district needs to be extended. We can help create new public water systems as well. There's many, many examples. So if you have a project, considering a project for your community, please reach out and we're happy to discuss those with you in further detail. So some of the things that we cannot fund through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund is a project whose primary purpose is fire protection or growth and development. Those are sometimes secondary results of the projects, but that has to be focused on public health and the drinking water quality. As I mentioned before, some dam work is eligible under our program and some is not, so we'd like to talk to you about those details. We can't fund operation and maintenance, has to be a capital improvement project, and we can't always fund land that is not directly integral to the project as well. So eligible entities we can fund, our funding goes to community water systems, and that means municipally owned or privately owned. And then we can provide funding to different types of community water systems, non-community water systems, and then there's some subcategories of non-transient, non-community, and transient, non-community water systems. Those definitions can be found on our website. If you're not familiar with those terms, it has to do with number of residents, how many are served on a daily basis versus different parts of the year. So, and then for when we say additional subsidy here, we mean grants in this particular case. So grants and interest-free financing can go to municipalities or privately owned water systems that are regulated by the Public Service Commission. So in order to, once you submit your listing form and an engineering report, our engineers in-house will review your engineering report and provide you a score for your overall project. Our scoring criteria is written into public health law. So we have basically two factors that we looked at, the technical side of things and then non-technical. Technical means like treatment technique violations or maximum contaminant level violations, violations of our sanitary code, and I can go into more details here in the next slide if you want to switch over. So again, our ranking is written into public health law. If you're interested to see the full scoring criteria and how many points we allot for each specific factor, then you can use the link online on the slide here. But here's a little snippet of our technical factors. Again, we're trying to address public health concerns. So the most acute public health risks are priority, and the long-term or chronic public health concerns are a secondary criteria or a secondary priority for us. So here's an example. And then for governmental needs, like the non-technical aspects, those are things like development of a water system or extending to a water system to serve private wells that are having contamination or yield issues, or consolidating water systems, or sole source aquifer. Those are like some examples of our governmental needs. And then we do have a financial need category based on your median household income. And lastly, just it's always a good idea if you have supplemental information to include letters from the local health department. If you have reports from your sanitary surveys of your water system or any lab data showing any exceedances of maximum contaminant levels, that's always a good thing for us to have. Whatever paints the full picture of the public health concern, the better. And that could help. Another way to help boost your points on our scoring system is to kind of bundle projects together. So for example, water main replacement by itself doesn't tend to score super well as a standalone project. You might want to consider adding a couple other things to help try and boost your score there. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Paul Kucha, and I'm a program coordinator with EFC. So I'll talk briefly about the program requirements and guidance. So projects that are funded through EFC must meet certain requirements and won't be funded without them. So you definitely want to make sure that all these are met, or the specific requirements will depend on what type of funding stream you're looking at. So you will definitely want to work with your project team to make sure you meet all the requirements for each specific project. So there's sort of roughly three broad categories. First, we have the ESC terms and conditions, which is required for all contracts paid for with EFC funds. This is going to include things like your MWBE, EEO requirements, service to disabled veterans, American Iron and Steel, Davis-Bacon. These are especially important because if you have the EFC terms and conditions and you follow all the procurement guidelines, you can actually get your planning costs reimbursed by SRF funds. Next, we've got the architectural and engineering procurement. These are pretty straightforward. And again, these are all up on the EFC website. It's just got some specific requirements for public posting, firm selection, ranking, and how you set up your contracts. And finally, if you have an equivalency project, which is also getting federal funds, you would also need to meet federal requirements, which are going to be things like the Build America, Buy America, DBE requirements. But again, if you've got any questions about which specific requirements your project has, make sure you reach out to your project team. And back to you, Ashley.
Thanks, Paul. Just wanted to touch briefly on how we define hardship or disadvantaged communities in order to be eligible for some of our interest-free or grant opportunities. So there's a municipal population criteria. If your community is under 300,000 in population, that means you would be eligible. But if you have documentation showing that your project service area is less than 300,000, that's also acceptable if it's documented through that income survey. Just a quick note that this 300,000 population does not apply to the lead service line funding available through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And in terms of affordable criteria, we look at the 2023 American Community Survey data. So if your municipality is less than 80% of the adjusted income for that county, then you'd be considered disadvantaged. If you are higher than 80%, then we next look at the poverty rate. So if your poverty rate is equal to or greater than 9.8%, you would be considered disadvantaged. So for example, the I mean, that's important. The disadvantage criteria is important when we are talking about the grants that we have available through our federal infrastructure funding. So there's what we used to call BILL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, has now changed names to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IJA. And there's 3 separate funding pools through IJA: the General Supplemental, Emerging Contaminants, and the Lead Service Line Replacement. So that disadvantage criteria is important when we are determining which projects are eligible for those 3 funding pools. We are about to, or our intended use plan is in draft form now. It'll be final in October, and then we will be making announcements of who gets these grants, the IJA grants, probably by the end of the year. So we'll announce the federal 2026 year, and then there's one more intended use plan in which that communities could apply for. So the 2027 IUP would be the last for those 3 funding pools. Thanks. And back over to EFC.
Thanks, Ashley. So if you want to apply for the state revolving fund application, you need to list a project on our annual list. And if you get listed on here, you'll get scored for it, and it will mean that you're eligible for funding that year if you meet certain scoring criteria. To apply for SRF funding, you're going to need to use EFC's online portal system, and we've got a QR code here that will take you straight there. If you go to the EFC website, you can also easily find this. In order to be on the annual list, your big required documents that you're going to need to put into score well are going to be your SRF financing application, your bond resolution, your environmental review, SHPO letter, and then your district formation if it's applicable for the project. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the state water grants that we have available. So we're going to talk about 2 different programs that basically sort of work together. We have the Water Infrastructure Improvement, or WIA program, and the Intermunicipal Water Infrastructure, or IMG, grant programs. So we're going to talk briefly about those. So these are for infrastructure projects to protect public health, improve water quality, and address emerging contaminants. These can be paired with EFC's financial assistance through the DWSRF program, which gives lower zero interest financing. And for this year, we have $325 million available. And the application for the WIA or IMG is on September 12th. So make sure that you get those in and on time and early.
Hey, it's me again, Ashley with DOH, to jump in on the drinking water WIA grant additional details here. So the same types of projects that we fund through our loan program are eligible for our WIA program. So it has to be, again, public health priority is what we're going for here with the drinking water WIA grants. We can fund up to 70% of net eligible project costs, up to $5 million. There is a separate set aside for emerging contaminants. So if your community is dealing with emerging contaminants above the state maximum contaminant level, you could get 70% of your project costs covered. There's no cap on that. If your municipality or a community is dealing with maximum contaminant levels below what we have in the state regulations, then you could be that same 70% $5 million cap applies for that. That's a slight difference to this year from previous years. If you have any questions about where your MCL is in relation to what you'd be qualified, feel free to reach out and we can talk about those in detail. So the next slide talks about eligible entities for WIA. Unlike our loan program, private water systems are not eligible for the state grant. You can see the list of eligible entities that fall under the municipality definition here. Next slide. So again, the same types of projects that we fund through our loan program are eligible for WIA. So it has to be for construction, replacement, or repairing infrastructure, and to help comply with or avoid public health violations, or resolve violations if there are out there. So projects have to meet the following criteria. They have to result in construction. They can't be, again, the primary purpose can't be for economic growth and development or fire protection. Can't have a notice to proceed prior to October 1st, 2023. It can't be completed construction by the deadline of September 12th. And we have to make sure that the appropriate terms and conditions are in the contracts. So to evaluate WEA projects, we use the same basis as our loan program so that the technical factors and the governmental factors that I was talking about earlier, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund scoring criteria is the basis for your WEA score as well. But we also take into consider project readiness. When I say project readiness, I mean like signed engineering agreements between the community and the consultants, plans and specifications, any approval letters from the health department, construction contracts, bid documents, and things like that. We also consider community support when we score WEA projects. Community support could look like letters from the residents in support of a project or letters from the local health department. So there's a little bit of extra points available to you for those readiness and community support when it comes to WEA. Here is a sample calculation of how we define net eligible project costs. So say that you have a $1 million project, you're awarded 400,000 from another state agency, say, that means you have 600,000 of net eligible project costs. So we take that 70% from there. So your maximum eligible grant for this particular project would be 420,000. Just a quick note that that would not apply to a emerging contaminant project that was over the state MCL. And again, the examples for WEA drinking water projects are very similar to our loan program. We're looking for construction, upgrades, replacement of drinking water infrastructure, trying to address noncompliance with either state or federal regulations. We're trying to help those private wells if they are contaminated or have yield issues, to develop new drinking water sources or treatment plants or extensions. And of course, we want to help try to address those emerging contaminants out there as well. I'm going to hand it back over to EFC.
Okay, next we're going to talk about the intermunicipal grants, or the IMG program. These are for more than one municipality that is working together to undertake a capital improvement project. So good examples of this are a shared water quality infrastructure project, consolidating facilities, or a pretty common one is interconnection of multiple municipal water systems. So this is available for both clean and drinking water. We're only going to be talking about drinking water today. Municipalities would be awarded 40% of total net project costs up to $30 million. You do need to have one municipality as the lead applicant, and they are applying on the behalf of everybody working together. You can apply for this grant on one or more projects. Each municipality is limited to receiving no more than $10 million of allocation per year. We've got a sample calculation. It's pretty straightforward. It's a lot like the other one. So if you have a sample project cost of $10 million and you got $400,000 from like an earmark or other non-EFC funding, you have your net eligible project costs, and then you get 40% of that as grant. And again, as mentioned previously, you might be able to get your matching funds from something like the DWSRF if need be. So for IMG projects, it's going to be pretty similar criteria for the regular WEA. Department of Health and EFC will consider factors like the reduction in risk to public health, readiness to advance in construction, level of demonstrated community support, benefits to multiple municipalities, and finally the impact to disadvantaged communities and potential environmental justice areas. Again, especially for the WEA ones, level of demonstrated community support. So getting support letters from your local legislature, and the people benefited will really help your project scoring. So similar criteria to WIA, you need to, your IMG project does need to result in construction of a final project. It cannot be for construction of infrastructure that's only for residential or commercial development. And it cannot have completed construction before September 12th, 2025. And as always, make sure that the project must include the applicable EFC terms and conditions in all contracts under construction. So we have a sample project here, which is the drinking water IMG project for the Livingston County Water and Sewer Authority with a Leicester York Regional Water Supply Extension. So this was about a $14 million project. This is an example of interconnection with multiple municipal water systems to provide source redundancy. So it's not a particularly interesting looking project, but you can see the whole picture here of it. And I'm going to turn it over to Gabby for the program requirements.
Hi everyone, so I'm Gabby Smith. I'm a program coordinator on our EFC community assistance teams, and I'll be discussing the WIA and IMG program requirements. So if you're awarded WIA or IMG, you must comply with the following requirements. So things like environmental review, which you may know as SECR or SHPO, smart growth, MWBE requirements, equal employment opportunity, as well as architectural and engineering procurement. If you're awarded only grants, then you would also comply with the following state requirements, which are service disabled veteran-owned businesses, so SDVOB. If you also decide to finance your projects besides WIA or IMG with SRF financing, then you also have to comply with federal requirements such as American Iron and Steel or AIS and Davis-Bacon federal prevailing wage. So if all contracts executed by recipients that are paid for with WIA funds, IMG funds, or SRF financial assistance have to comply with these program requirements, and they do that by including the applicable EFC terms and conditions in their contracts. And if they're not included in those contracts, if they're not included in the contracts, they're not eligible for funding. Then we'll go into applying for WIA and IMG. So there's one application for both WIA and IMG grant programs. It's a new application, a new online application, and you can find that on our website, or you can use this QR code to access it. Be sure to identify whether it's a clean water or a drinking water project, and you can save the progress of your draft application as you're doing it, so you don't have to do it all at once. And that, once again, is open now, so the deadline for WIA or IMG is September 12th at 5 p.m. And just a little plug, we recently released a state water grants application walkthrough video. So you can go on our website and watch this video to learn more about the opportunities through the state water grants. And then we'll go through step by step how to submit a complete application. So if you use this QR code, you can go straight to the website, or you can go to the website and navigate it to our video. Then we'll just talk a little bit about community assistance team. So what I'm on at EFC. So we help municipalities access state and federal funding. We were created by Governor Hochul to build EFC's technical assistance program that helps communities access funding for their water infrastructure projects. We do have a focus on small, rural, and disadvantaged communities, but we are available for all communities within New York State. So feel free to request a meeting, sign up for our emails, and register for webinars. Once again, you can use this QR code or you go to our website. But our teams are available for consultations with your community, in person or virtual. We work with almost all of our agencies are on the call today, but so Department of Environmental Conservation, Department of Health, Department of State, and Homes and Community Renewal. You can contact our team with this number or this email. you can also, once again, go to our website and navigate to those things. And as I said, you can sign up for our emails to be notified of grant announcements when we release our webinar, when we're having our webinars, when we release video, upcoming events and upcoming deadlines. And this QR code will direct you to our sign up page. Thank you. This QR code will lead you to our website. If you want to contact us, you can email the CWSRF email or the Department of Health email address here, or go on our website once again.
Great, thank you, Gabby. We'll now turn it over to Charlie with Homes and Community Renewal.
Hey, thanks everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I am Charlie Filling, one of the program directors here at the Office of Community Renewal with the Community Development Block Grant Program. So we just keep going to the next slide here. So a little background, New York State Homes and Community Renewal. This is the state's consolidated affordable housing agency. It is made up of the Affordable Housing Corporation, the Division of Housing and Community Renewal, Housing Finance Agency, State of New York Mortgage Agency, and the Housing Trust Fund Corporation and others. As an office within New York State Homes and Community Renewal, the Office of Community Renewal administers a variety of state and federal resources to empower local governments and not-for-profit organizations to build on the unique and historic character of New York's communities through housing, infrastructure, and job creation activities. Next slide. Again, there's two general development areas, our Office of Community Renewal and the Office of Finance and Development, which is primarily responsible for direct award and oversight of multifamily rental properties. Today, we're going to talk about grant programs offered by HCR's Office of Community Renewal. And the, I guess, Gabby, you're going to make this presentation available. So I guess if we just keep going here, the next slide.
Yep, and I'll just quickly mention, Charlie, we're going to post a recording of this, so everybody will be able to have a copy of this.
All right. Great, thanks. This is a broad description of potential eligible activities available through the funding sources that will be reviewed today. Technical assistance and planning is always available through the New York State CDBG and the New York State Main Street programs. I just want to point out specifically that our office currently has a housing program, so housing rehab, but we also offer within it infrastructure and support of existing housing. So for example, if you're working with a manufactured housing park in your community, there's potential funding source here through that. And then also the accessibility modifications for municipal buildings, economic development, and then technical assistance and planning. These are all open through our open round, and that is available through October 31st of this year. Again, the way that we're structured depends on the source of the funds. If your funding source is federal or state, this shows the flow of funds. Most of the funding sources discussed today will allow qualified not-for-profits to apply. CDBG specifically, you have to be a local unit of government, so city, town, village, county, that is the only eligible entity for that purpose. And so just a quick federal and state funding overview. At the federal level, there is two programs. There's the CDBG program and what we refer to here as our sister program, the HOME program. Both sources of funds are federal and are provided through HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. And the next, at the state level, this is all state funding. This is available through the sources listed, and this funding is provided directly by the state and is administered by the Office of Community Renewal. And just a quick snapshot. So the CDBG program, to kind of give you an idea of where our funding has gone 2021 to 2024. You can kind of see the distribution across the regions. You'll note that there is no allocation here for New York City. They're not eligible for our funding. And Long Island, most of Nassau and Suffolk County belong to what they refer to as an entitlement jurisdiction. So we don't get a lot of action from Long Island either. So this is the primary 8 upstate regions across the state for the last 5 years. And we'll just keep going. So last year for 2024, this is all the funding sources that we had. A total of $175 million was administered by Homes and Community Renewal in the Office of Community Renewal. And just to shout out the CDBG program, it's funny, I've been around longer than the CDBG program, but we did turn 50 years old in 2024. We've had a big push this year for participation, and we are gearing up for CDBG 2026. Again, if you've got projects you're looking at, interested in understanding more, reach out to Nick through the CATS teams for consultation, or you can reach out to me and we can talk about the CDBG program. So CDBG, again, this is federal. We need to ensure that 70% of our funds are used for activities that benefit persons of low and moderate income. That's defined as incomes at or below the 80% of the area median income. It meets a national objective, which will be explained in the next slide. So again, under the CDBG program, we have to meet this national objective, and you can see on the slide here how this is met. So typically, public infrastructure, the sewer and water projects are met by this LMA, which is a low and moderate income area. So we're able to define that the service area, the beneficiaries are low and moderate income. Some activities use LMC, which is a limited clientele. So for example, senior center, I know this is water, but just kind of a broad description of the CDBG program for your benefit. We also have the LMJ, which is economic development. We can do infrastructure in support of economic development. So if you've got a manufacturer or business coming that needs sewer, water, gas, electric, we could potentially assist with that. And then again, this LMC-MC, that again falls under the micro enterprise program, and that's where the business owner also qualifies as low income. So again, as I said a few minutes ago, CDBG local units of government only are eligible to apply, not entitlements. We'll just keep the next slide. So if you check here on our website, you can copy this link. I can put this into this chat here. Give me a second. And this will take you to our website. And it's a list of the eligible communities across the state. You can see the gray areas. So upstate, Erie, Monroe, Onondaga County, some of the lower Hudson Valley counties. Those are the gray areas are the entitlement jurisdictions. They do not participate in the state program. But again, if you click on that list I just put in the chat, it'll take you there. There's a nice comprehensive list by county. If you're on there, you're eligible to apply. So public infrastructure, again, CDBG is the primary funding source in our office, and we can include engineering and design, all components of construction for drinking water systems. This includes everything from point source production, treatment, storage, and distribution. On the sanitary sewer side, this includes all components from collection to treatment. We can also assist lateral connections. This can be included as an ancillary activity. It includes everything from the curb stop to the house, and may also include internal plumbing modifications that might be required. For laterals, this is a direct benefit to the household. Only income-eligible households can be assisted. Businesses, commercial, industrial, government buildings are not eligible for the lateral connection assistance. So while the funding round for the CFA for the public infrastructure closed on July 31st, our housing program, as I said, is still open for this year. If you want to come in for a lateral-only activity, you can do that through the public infrastructure in support of, public infrastructure in support of existing housing. You could do the lateral connections through that side of the program. So again, the infrastructure and support of existing housing, it's a pretty broad category. It can include direct assistance activities such as drilling private wells, construction or rehabilitation of septic systems, installation of lateral connections to low and moderate income households from the public water to the sewer mains. Funding of lateral connections can be standalone projects or can be a larger public infrastructure project, but the homeowners receiving laterals funded with CDBG must be determined to be low or moderate income. In some instances, in quotes, the system owns the laterals up to the house. In those cases, consult with the OCR for further guidance. You can please note that for the program year 25, we are prioritizing projects that are addressing lead service lateral replacement in compliance with EPA requirements. Our sister program, the home program, home projects can be used for this purpose also, but must provide a code compliant unit upon completion. Each of the major systems have to have a remaining useful life of 5 years. Funding for CDBG is available under the housing program. And again, that round closes September 19th, 2025. The applications are available through OCR's CDOL, which is our Community Development Online System. If you're not familiar with it, just reach out to us. We've got contact information, or you can email us at ocrinfo@hcr.ny.gov. So just a quick project example. We funded a project, the town of Mariah up in Essex County. It's a small water district, so the town received a little over $250,000, primarily intended to assist 6 low and moderate income households in this district that were on a failed old water system. But we're also kind of opening this up to other activities, so we're going to allow the town to also include other residential water wells, septic system upgrades, and municipal system lateral connections. So again, anybody in the town, but again, the primary benefit for this project was this Cheever water system supply system. So as I said, we also have the economic development arm of the program. We don't get a lot of business on this side with respect to the infrastructure, but again, we can assist with bringing water, sewer, gas, electric, and roads for a business that is creating new jobs. This can also include the acquisition of property, financing of machinery and equipment, furniture, fixture, and equipment, building construction and renovation, working capital, inventory, and employee training expenses. For the standalone single business projects, the maximum award amount is $750,000. The minimum is $100,000. CDBG can assist with up to 40% of the total project cost, and projects must result in the creation or retention of at least one permanent full-time equivalent job for every $15,000 in CDBG funds awarded. We have community planning available, and again, this is available right now through our open round two-step process. There's a pre-application that you'll submit through the CFA portal that's reviewed, and if it's approved, you're given the green light to submit a full application. It's basically your path to funding. Again, we have funding up to $50,000 available at this time. Funds may be requested as community planning grants or technical assistance grants. They can be used to facilitate the retention of outside experts as consultants to a participating community's planning committee to identify vulnerabilities and damaged assets and assess needs of the community. The purpose behind this activity is to allow community to begin the long-term process of implementing community development. It's anticipated that this preliminary step will result in a full CDBG application for infrastructure, economic development, or housing. Again, you need to meet this low-income benefit at the time of application. You need to show how at implementation, when this is put into production, that there's a low-income benefit to the community. If the community does not need to be 51% low-income, but the final report upon implementation, so again, if you're dealing in a town, the town may not be 51%, but we can show that the district benefiting from the improvements are 51% low income, the project could potentially be eligible for funding. So just a quick example of a recently funded project. This is Ulster County. Awarded $30,000. We're working with them to look at 2 manufactured housing parks. One is in the town of Plattekill, a 57-unit project, or 57-lot project, and then another one in the town of Esopus that's got 25 units. Again, they're looking to outline the construction alternatives, and the county will be using these projects, these reports, to come in the 2026 or 2027 round for CDBG assistance and hopefully some other funding sources through EFC and or USDA Rural Development. So on an annual basis, we issue a NOFA or Notice of Funding Availability. We do anticipate opening that up in 2026 in the first quarter. The NOFA will be for all the programs, and it provides specific guidance based on the state and federal resources. And there's 2 portals that we use, the CDOL. So anything that is applied to directly to OCR, again, in the housing side of the program, that uses CDOL, you must be a registered user in that system in order to get into it. The public infrastructure, the community planning, economic development, that continues to go through the CFA consolidated funding application. These are some available resources to everybody. There's a HUD exchange, CPD's community planning development notices. These are all available through HUD. There's a easy to use income calculator on HUD's website. There's numerous toolkits available to anybody. And again, technical assistance is always available. Just pick up the phone and reach out to us and we'll set something up. Again, our contact information is here, ocrinfo@hcr.ny.gov, and our phone number. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Charlie. We'll now go to Kyle with the Department of State.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Wilbur, and I am the program manager for a couple programs at the Department of State Division of Local Government Services that can help communities considering infrastructure projects. One is statewide and 2 are regional. Next. Our first program is our Local Government Efficiency Program. This is intended to help communities share services and cooperate on the provision of local services, including infrastructure. We can provide planning implementation dollars for local governments to do these projects. Next. Again, actually, that slide was a little out of place. This is a summary of our 3 programs. Our Local Government Efficiency Program, which includes a competitive once-a-year $8 million pot of money for cooperative efforts. Our Citizens Reorganization Empowerment Grant Program, CREG, which is a monthly application for consolidation activities, and our 2 regional programs, our Northern Border Regional Commission and Appalachian Regional Commission. Next. For our local government once-a-year competitive program, we have $8 million available this year. We have not released the application. We anticipate that to be in the fall, likely, of this year. For that program, we are still designing/redesigning, making changes from last year's application, but we anticipate about $7.2 million for implementation and up to $800,000 for planning projects. We're not in the REDC process, as folks are familiar with anymore, but we do use a CFA portal for applications. So stay tuned for an announcement of this sometime in the next month or 2. Next. For the LGE grant program, a significant amount of local governments are eligible. You'll see on this list, don't need to go through all of them, but mostly folks who are providing local services are eligible. and we can provide traditional expenses like many others, contractual services, capital equipment. We can provide personnel on a transitional basis to help with local governments that are sharing a service or providing a service to another local government. We can pay for those services up to a 3-year period for personnel. Next. For our planning projects, currently they're capped at $20,000 per municipality, up to $100,000, requiring a local match of 50%. This needs to be cash, not in kind. For implementation, it's capped at $250,000 per local government, up to 1.25 million, and the match for those it's a 90-10 split, so only 10% local funds are required for a match for an implementation project. Next. We also, last year in the grant, and we anticipate this year as well, we wanted to engage regional planning boards and counties on planning and developing larger regional projects. So we can provide, this is part of the planning pool of money, we can provide up to $20,000 to those entities to do a project that spans at least 5 local governments. So we score those on number of co-applicants, number of services and functions anticipated, their regional planning experience, and then budget and work plan information. Again, the intent of this is to provide those entities to be able to work with partners to look at more regional solutions on a planning basis to be able to submit applications in a future round for implementation. We think it's a good idea to use these entities to help smaller local governments develop their projects. Next. Our Citizens Reorganization Empowerment Grant, our CREG grant, the second of the LGE programs, is a small grant pool intended to help local governments implement New York's consolidation statute, which is General Municipal Law 17A. And in most cases, this applies. We've received funding requests from villages who are considering dissolution or have been petitioned for dissolution. But where it applies to this discussion is on the special district level in towns, especially. We're receiving applications from towns who are considering town water or sewer district consolidation and have funded some of those recently. The maximum is $100,000 per project, 50 for planning, 50 for implementation. Those applications are available with a due date of the first Wednesday of every month, and it's just a simple email submission. These are basically as of right grants, as long as you're proposing to do something permitted under GML 17A for the consolidation of local governments. Next. And just to go back on the town special districts, we know that in a way they're local governments in name because they're managed and monitored by the towns, but we treat each special district as a separate entity when applicants are applying. Again, the eligible applicants are towns, villages, special districts, or towns on behalf of special districts, and the same eligible expenses that we permit under the LGE program are those that will fund. Next. We have 2 regional programs as well that fund infrastructure, our Northern Border Regional Commission and our Appalachian Regional Commission. These are federally funded state, local, federal partnerships. The states work with regional entities and local governments to determine projects each year, but they're funded by the federal funding and managed by the commissions on a contractual level. So again, the states get to direct the funding for all these projects in these regions. 13 counties in the Appalachian region of New York and 30 in the Northern Border region of New York. Next. So just some brief details on the MBRC program. Both of these commission programs, the intent is to support economic development in communities in those regions. The commissions were created, ARC in 1965, MBRC in 2008, to inject public resources into areas that are often overlooked or not competitive under other programs, with the mission of driving economic development. So unlike EFC that funds infrastructure for environmental purposes mostly, this is really for economic development, although we can co-fund with other funders. Next. MBRC, just briefly, is a 4-state partnership with the federal government, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, New York. We could fund municipalities and nonprofits, no private entities. And the match is, it's 80-20 in distressed communities, which are the dark green ones, 50-50 in transitional counties. New York's mostly defined as distressed by MBRC, and we can fund planning implementation dollars. The match can be other federal dollars, but we can't fund more than 80% of a project with federal funds. Next. MBRC has 7 priorities. 4 of them are infrastructure. The others are workforce, entrepreneurship, basic healthcare, and conservation, tourism, recreation. The commission has spent 40% of its dollars on infrastructure, so we do a significant amount of traditional infrastructure projects. We just announced around in the summer. MBRC has an open round currently with pre-apps due by the end of next Friday. You can submit pre-apps to mbrc.gov and get information on the grants management system. All the applications are submitted through an online portal for all 4 states, and then share with each state. So time's getting late, but if you're interested, we've talked to a number of folks already about pre-apps, but there could be some time available if you're interested. You can email us as well. My information is at the end of this presentation. Next. Just a couple examples of projects we've done or funded: Cuyahoga County Water and Sewer, for business expansion, for Ticonderoga Association, a water line replacement to help with their management and growth and planning for their 2026 events for the 250th anniversary of the Revolution. Next. Just a brief photo or graph here to show you how the funding is, our funding line for MBRC over the past 15 years. We last round we were able to announce about $12 million in grants, so and 21 awards, so it's grown pretty significantly over time. Next. This is just a breakdown of the funding. Like I said, for this past spring round, we awarded $12.3 million in New York. And like I said, the pre-apps are due August 29th. For the fall round, we have over $8 million available for this round. Next. The process for the program, again, submit pre-apps. Pre-apps are reviewed by MBRC and state program managers. Those entities that qualify and seem to be proposing good projects, we invited back for full applications, and then the full applications are reviewed by the states and MBRC, and then MBRC is the contractor with the local governments or nonprofits or schools or colleges, whomever applies. Next. And these are our score breakdown. Like I said, MBRC reviews them. We review them. Each entity gets 50% of the scoring. We combine the scores and produce a list. Critical for us is we want entities to consider the REDCs and their goals. We look at impacts on downtowns as well as across the region. MBRC looks at budget and work plan, consistency with their strategic plan, other factors. You can find this scoring are in the program manual, which is online at mbrc.gov. Next. Funding for MBRC, $1 million for infrastructure, up to $3 million if that $1 million threshold can be exceeded if a project is either multi-jurisdictional or covers multiple infrastructure categories. All others are $500,000 per project reimbursement grants. Like I said, we can use federal funding as match, but only up to 80% of the total project cost. Next. The Appalachian program covers 13 counties in the southern tier of New York. This is a picture of that. We are assisted there by three regional planning boards: Southern Tier 8 in Binghamton, Southern Tier Central in Corning, Southern Tier West in Salamanca. Like the MBRC program, the administration, this is very similar. The governors are the members, The governor appoints an alternate who is the Deputy Secretary of State, Mark Pattison. I'm the program manager, and we have an assistant program manager for the ARC program, which is George Korchowski. Many of you may have met us in the past. Next. ARC's goals are very similar to MBRC's. We have 5 in the ARC region. They're actually updating their strategic plan now. So if you're from the Southern Tier, look out for some webinars on the ARC strategic plan. But business and entrepreneurship, workforce, critical infrastructure, cultural tourism, and leadership and community capacity. Both entities are big in supporting local capacity, and both have goals related to that. Next. In 24, I guess we were able to invest 12.3 million in the ARC program. These are just numbers for you to consider. But again, it's workforce focused, jobs focused, economic development focused, 28 projects in 24. Next. So the picture on the right is our economic status of our counties for 25. The burnt orange ones are at risk. That means their match is lower than the white ones. The white ones are transitional, which is 50-50 match. And we had about 3.1 million in our annual area development program. So currently ARC is investing not only our annual funding, but I'll talk on the next slide. We received $1 billion under the BILL program. Some of that was given to the states. We have 1 more year of that. So that's about $4 million per year. So we're at about 7 million per year until the end of next year, when we'll probably go back to the 3.1 just for the annual program. ARC also has 2 side, a couple region-wide programs. One is Power. That NOSA was just released. Power is intended to support communities impacted by the coal economy. Can also fund infrastructure there. We have a project in Chautauqua County funded through Power for a business park. And all this information is in detail on ARC site. Next. As I mentioned, the IIJA bill funds were $1 billion over 5 years. Of that, 100 million goes directly to the states for regional development, 4 million to New York, and then there's also a multi-state ARISE partnership program, which ARC tries to stimulate multi-state partnerships. So very unique. Doing a multi-state grant is a little hard, but been pretty successful. But again, that funding will run out next year. Next. That's me, Kyle Wilbur, kyle.wilbur@dos.ny.gov. If you have questions about the open NBRC program, if you're in the North Country, or the upcoming Power program that's open for the Appalachia, please email me, as well as any questions on the LG program. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kyle. And thank you to everyone who stuck with us to the end. I'm going to stop sharing now, and we'll